United States versus UK car pricing. I wanted to do this video because I've been obviously sharing some pricing with my viewers when I review cars, and other people in other countries see the videos and they see the pricing along with the discounts and the cheap lease deals that we get in the US for really nice cars, and people in other countries, they literally can't believe it. I had one person comment on my Porsche Macan video saying that in their country a Macan would cost triple what it costs in the US. And then he went on to say that cars are literally free in the United States. That just made me laugh. And partly because, I mean, first of all, it's true, but also because a lot of people in the US are complaining about how expensive everything is when things cost triple in other countries. So I just wanted to bring some perspective on both the US market and the UK market, and who knows, I may even decide to do this for other countries as well. But before we get started, we have to first acknowledge the currency difference between the US and the UK. So they use the pound, of course. And with current exchange rates, I'm doing this video July of 2023, $1 equals 0.76 pounds. You can say it a different way, where the pound is worth $1.31. And the vehicle I'm going to use as an example today is the 2023 BMW X3. I just chose it because I recently reviewed one. And I selected the UK version's xDrive 20i petrol model. The UK gets a lot of different models, trim levels, and they have a lot more electrified versions that we don't get in the United States. They have a plug-in hybrid version of the X3 along with the diesel, the petrol, and then they have the full electric EV version as well. And I'll get into petrol versus diesel for the UK market later, but even the car I chose is not apples to apples. What they get, their petrol version, is the xDrive 20i with 184 horsepower. In the US, the base model X3 is an xDrive 30i with 248 horsepower. We also get the rear-wheel drive version. I'm not going to worry about that. So that's the other thing. Not only do cars cost more in other countries, but they typically get the less powerful version of the vehicle. But in the UK, the vehicle is going to cost £47,295. In the US, for the spec I chose, a base model X3 30i, it would cost $49,195. Now let's put that into the currency calculator. Okay, 47,295 pounds is equivalent to almost 62,000 US dollars. Almost 12 grand more than what we would pay for the equivalent car in the US. But the reason why it's so expensive in the UK is because they have something known as a VAT, and that is their tax. They have a 20% tax on pretty much all of their cars. And that's the reason why their prices are so inflated, because of this VAT, and that equates to 7,560 pounds. Now, typically, almost all of the UK car manufacturers include this VAT into their MSRP pricing, or they call it the RRP, the recommended retail price, but it's the same thing as our MSRP. So that's good that they are so transparent about the VAT, they're not hiding it. Otherwise, the vehicle would have only cost 37,800 pounds. At that point, when you enter that number into the currency calculator, 37,800 pounds is equivalent to about $50,000, which is exactly what we pay for the car. So as you can see, it's their tax that really inflates the price. They also have this on the road fee. I don't know what the hell that is. It's 1,935 pounds. I'm assuming that's the equivalent to the US's destination fee, which is like a transportation fee. We only pay like $1,000 in the US for the on the road fee. So they're really inflating that price as well in the UK. But it doesn't matter. You live in the UK, these are the prices you have to pay. So as we just established, with all the taxes and everything, a UK shopper is spending almost $12,000 more than a USA customer for Actually, not even the same car. They're actually also getting a slightly worse version of the X3, you know, a less powerful version, and they're spending almost $12,000 more for it. That's pretty bad, but granted, it's not double or triple the cost that we are paying in the US like it is in some other countries. In this next segment, I'm going to show some of the UK viewers how they can potentially save on that money and potentially bring that cost closer to a USA buyer. Okay, the first thing you can try if you live in the United Kingdom to save some money is potentially using a car broker. Pretty much nobody in the US does this. To be honest, most people in the US do get screwed on every car that they buy. I'll save that topic for the end of this video. But in the US, we can use a broker. I'm partnered with one of them, actually one of the largest ones. His name is AutoCompanion. And on a BMW X3 in the US, he is offering 4% off MSRP. That's about $2,000 off the MSRP of a new X3. You can try finding a similar type of service in the UK, and I did some Google searching and I did find one. Their name is called Carfile and their website is carfile.net. I'm not sure if these people are trustworthy. I don't know anything about them. I didn't research into their company, so that's going to be on you to do your own due diligence and to find other potential brokers that help save you money on vehicles. Typically, a broker is going to partner with a bunch of different dealerships and they're going to work at high volume to pass on a great discount to their buyers. You're most likely going to have to pay a fee to use their service, like maybe £500 or something, but in return they can save you thousands of pounds. For instance, Carfile.net, they're saving you about £4,000 off the MSRP of a new X3. Now that's a huge help, and that's a bigger discount than what AutoCompanion is saving you in the US. But what I would suggest you doing before you work with any car broker, take that discount that they are offering, the car brokers, and just email your local dealership, you know, the one that's nearby. Find the general manager's email address somewhere on their website and just email them very politely. I'm interested in this particular X3, you know, share the stock number and the VIN number of the car that you want. Let them know, I want £4,000 off the price of this X3, and see if they go for it. That way, you don't have to pay the broker fee and worry about shipping or any of that stuff. If your local car dealership is willing to give you that discount, I would say great. You just saved yourself a lot of money. So that's how I like to use the brokers. Take their discounts and then see if your local dealership will give it to you. Next, I want to talk about different finance options in the UK versus the United States. In the US, we have three primary ways of purchasing a vehicle. You can either pay cash, you can finance, or you can lease the car. There's actually a fourth element, even in the US, and that's called financing with a balloon payment at the end. And this seems to be very popular in the UK. In the UK, a balloon finance is called a PCP. So they'll finance the car for maybe 4 or 5 years, and at the end of that term, there's going to be a massive balloon payment due, like $25,000 or pounds or $20,000, and you have to make that lump sum payment at the end. But what most people do, they just trade in the vehicle before that balloon payment is due. So it's effectively like leasing, but it's not a guarantee. The purchaser is still on the hook. It's not quite a lease, but it's kind of a blend between a lease and a finance. And then you have the hire purchase in the UK, which is your traditional financing. And then you have the personal contract hire, and that's what the UK calls leasing, essentially. Financing a new X3 in both the UK and in the US, it's going to be about 5.9% interest. And that's unfortunately what you have to pay for a new BMW, and it varies between the different models. But for an X3, you're looking at 5.9%. And this is where a lot of people in the United States get screwed over when they purchase a car. In the US, we love to finance. That's what most people do. And it's primarily because that's what most people can understand. I have been preaching leasing on this channel for about 5 years now, and to the average consumer, they still can't wrap their head around it. So what they do instead is they go and finance the vehicle, because 70% of America does not have $1,000 in a savings account. The average person at least has to finance everything that they buy, especially their cars. And when you do that, a traditional finance, it's going to be a simple interest, but what they do is they front load all of the interest at the beginning of the loan. Meaning if you get a 60-month finance, for the first 3 years, the majority of your payments are going towards the interest. So the bank is making sure that they get paid first. And then the last 2, maybe 3 years of the loan, that's when you're actually building equity in the car. That's when most of your payments start to go towards the principal. But the problem with that is, most people, they want to trade their car in after 3 or 4 years. But because they financed it, because the interest was front loaded, they don't have much equity in the vehicle anymore. Does that make sense? So when they trade the car in, they're underwater. They might be $5,000, $10,000 in negative equity. And what do most people do? They roll that negative equity into the next car, and then they finance that car as well. Do you see how dangerous that is? Because they keep financing the car and they keep paying all this interest up front, they're never making equity, and they just keep compiling and almost compounding the problem. This is why so many people, especially in the US, they're struggling, because the car is typically the most expensive thing most people buy, because in this market, not many people can afford a house, so they're just renting. A lot of people are getting screwed on cars, and I'm assuming it's the same thing in the UK as well. When you finance, they're most likely going to front load that interest. And this is why I always preached leasing on my channel. Okay, now leasing is a powerful tool, but you have to be very careful and you have to be very informed and use some resources. Compared to a finance, you have something known as a residual value, and this number actually protects the buyer. Meaning, if you're $5,000 underwater at the end of 3 years for your lease, well, that's not your fault, because the dealership or the manufacturer, they promise to purchase the vehicle back at the set residual rate. So now the company is on the hook for any negative depreciation. So you see, most leases, they're between 2 to 4 years. Most are typically 3. And the difference between the person who financed and they want to get rid of their car after 3 years and the person who leases the car, after 3 years, the person who financed almost always has negative equity in the car. But most people typically argue this point that, oh, you have to pay for all the scratches and the dings. Well, first of all, take care of your property. But second, you can actually purchase a wear and tear package for an extra $10 a month, and that'll protect you from those surcharges at the end. But the danger with leasing is there's something known as the money factor, and that is the interest rate on the lease. That's something that's very difficult to figure out and find. Dealerships never disclose this because that's how they bake in their profit. Here in the United States, you can go on Edmunds. There's a certain forum where you can ask for the residual value of every car. But also, since I'm partnered with AutoCompanion, he offers a free leasing calculator. So you can enter in your zip code and it shows you the interest rate for your particular state and region in the US. Unfortunately, I was never able to find something like that for the UK market. So if you're in the United Kingdom, you can do your own due diligence and see if there's something like that. I wasn't able to find it on Google, but it's imperative that you figure out the residual value and the interest rate on the lease before you contact a dealership. I mean, if you don't have access to the info, you could just ask the dealer straight up, hey, what's the interest rate on the lease? But the problem with that is they can tell you a number, but you don't know if they inflated that number. You could maybe ask 2, 3, 4 different dealerships and see where their numbers are at. That's the best that you can do without a calculator on hand. But why do I bring up leasing? Because this is one of the ways that UK shoppers could potentially save on the 20% VAT. Okay, let me just make this disclaimer very quickly. I am not a tax accountant. I'm not a tax advisor. I'm not anybody's anything, okay? I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a financial guru. I have I am not here to help you with your money in any way, shape, or form. Take all of this information as entertainment. But when I Googled this, if you're in the UK and you lease a car for a business purpose, you have the ability of writing off up to 100% of that VAT. And if you use it as both a business and a personal use, you can write off up to 50% of that VAT. But you have to be a business owner to take advantage of these tax write-offs, whether you're in the United States or if you're in the UK. This is why I told people, at least on my channel, most of them watching, they're in the US, I would tell them to start up something as, simple and humble, like an eBay store. A business does not mean you have to go out and build Amazon tomorrow. That's the wrong idea. And that's unfortunately the idea most people have when they say, oh, start a business. But no, it can be something as small as an eBay store, flipping used clothes that you find at a thrift store onto eBay. You buy something for $5 and you flip it for $20 on eBay. You technically don't even have to make money with the eBay store. You just need that business in place so you can write off things like vehicles and your cell phone, your computers, things of that nature. Expensive purchases, you can now write it off through your business. Again, I'm not a tax advisor. I'm just telling you this is a common thing that most people do to save money on taxes. Is to start up an LLC or a corporation, and this is the power of leasing a car. It's to save on these absurd taxes. This is where the true savings come in. You're saving on the taxes and you're potentially working with a broker that's saving you up to £4,000 on a new car. Now the vehicle can end up being cheaper than what we get in the United States. Again, not tax advice, not your CPA. I'm just saying these are the potentials and these are the possibilities with leasing if you are a business owner. Next up, let's go more in depth on some of the taxes you have to pay, because both in the US and in the UK, this is something that costs a lot of money. Obviously, we saw the 20% VAT that most UK owners have to pay when they purchase a new car. Well, in the US, it's still pretty bad, and it changes and it depends on the state and even the county that you live in. But in a state like New Jersey, you can pay up to 8% in sales tax when you purchase the car, but after that, you don't have to worry about paying taxes. In a state like North Carolina, the tax rate could be as low as 3%, but you have something known as a property tax, and you have to pay that year after year, and that never ends. And for a $45,000 vehicle, depending on the county that you're in North Carolina, that property tax can range between $300 a year to upwards of $700 per year. Yeah, so that's pretty painful. But in the UK, they do taxes a little differently. They apparently look at the carbon footprint of the vehicle, and that's how they determine the taxes. And it's these super strict emissions that the European market has that gets translated over into other regions like the United States. That's why we're getting such neutered cars, because they're really strict on carbon emissions and things of that nature in other countries, and now we suffer from that as well in the US. And one of the reasons why hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and full EVs are so popular in the UK is because they pretty much pay next to no tax, because their tax rates are based upon the vehicle's CO2 emissions. But there's multiple types of taxes. There's a first time payment of a tax, and then there's a second tax that you have to pay, and that's similar to what I was describing with the North Carolina property tax, where you have to pay year after year. If you have a low emission car or a zero emission car, you pay $0 in tax. Same thing with the yearly tax. They pay nothing for a full EV. But in the case of this X3, okay, it's got 175 gram CO2 emission rating. And according to the UK government website, a vehicle like that is going to have to pay £1,040 as a first-time tax, and then afterwards it's going to be around £180 per year. However, if the list price exceeds £40,000, there's some type of a luxury tax, if you will, where you have to pay an additional £390 or £570. I don't know, it's kind of all over the place, but there is a luxury tax where if your car costs more than £40,000, you have to pay this additional tax. So as you can see with the VAT and these CO2 taxes, I mean, yeah, the UK, they got some crazy stuff that they got to pay, but so do we in the US. Okay, we got property taxes and we got sales tax on the car too. It's not quite as extreme as what it is in the UK, but it is there. Now let's go ahead and let's talk about the used car market in both the US and in the UK. Okay, I mentioned the autotrader.co.uk website. That seems to be the best used car search website in the UK. And there's something known as the CAT S, C, D, and N. And CAT stands for category, and S, C, D, and N, that stands for the severity of an accident that a vehicle has been in. So I don't know why they still have C and D, because it was replaced by S and N. But a category N crash vehicle means that it's a non-structural damage that can be repaired. But a category S accident is a structural damage that can be repaired. That's what that stands for, and that information, I got it from carwow.co.uk. Very good resource. And I tell people this in the United States as well. When you're searching on websites like Car Gurus, filter out all of the accident vehicles, and that's what I'm going to tell the UK viewers as well, to exclude any category of accident. And I filter by cars with less than 15,000 miles on it, and a pre-owned or even a certified pre-owned BMW X3, it's going for around £35,000, which honestly, that's not worth paying. You're better off just buying a brand new X3 with that £4,000 discount, or even consider leasing it if you have a business name, as I mentioned before. And same thing in the United States market, pre-owned or even certified pre-owned X3s are going for around $35,000. Again, I would just lease a new one with a discount, because these are all 3 to 4 year old cars with mileage on them. Plus the interest rates are going to be higher. Even if you buy a certified pre-owned BMW, they're going to charge you a higher interest rate on the loan compared to a new one. But aside from this BMW X3, the used car market in the UK is rather interesting, because I've been told that if you buy from a private individual, meaning not a dealership, you don't have to pay the 20% VAT when you purchase that car from an individual as opposed to a dealership. So even if you go to a used car dealership, most likely you're going to have to still pay that 20% VAT. But a lot of people, even in the UK, don't like purchasing from individuals, because in the UK, the seller legally does not have to report the accident history of the car, whereas a dealership absolutely does. Because of this crucial lack of information, a lot of people in the UK apparently like to still purchase cars from a good dealership. That is a pretty big incentive to buy from an individual. I mean, if you have someone trustworthy and you know the car, then it's something to look into, but you're obviously not getting any warranties or any support when you buy from an individual. So something to think about. So next, let's talk about insurance rates. Okay, I was digging around in some of the forums, and I was looking at what some people were paying for a BMW X3 in the UK. It seems to be around £875 a year, but insurance, that varies drastically because it's dependent on your age, where you live, how much you drive, etc. For young people in their 20s, they pay an absolute fortune in the UK for insurance. Same thing with the US, but that kind of only lasts up to maybe age 22, 21, something like that. It's mainly like 16 to 20-year-olds. That's where you really have to watch out for insurance in the United States. But I just rounded up the insurance rates that I saw in the UK. It seemed to be pretty low. That £875 figure was for an M version of the X3, like an M40i. So just in case, just to be sure, I rounded up to £1,000 a year, which equates to about £83 per month. In the United States, to insure a $50,000 X3, you're looking at probably around $150 to $200 a month. Again, that's also dependent on where you live. It could be like $300-400 in California, I don't know. But I'll just call it $150 in the US and about £83 in the UK. So fortunately, insurance isn't too crazy. Now, the next few things I'm going to cover, it's going to be fuel and other kind of yearly expenses. Previously, diesel was like the no-brainer choice. Diesel was cheaper in a lot of other countries like the UK compared to petrol, and you get better mileage as well. So almost everyone used to purchase diesel-powered cars, but as of July 2023, these are the average fuel prices I was able to find for the UK. About £1.45 for a liter of petrol and £1.55 for a liter of diesel. So diesel actually costs more now in the UK, but that's not the only reason why I would suggest purchasing the petrol version of whatever car you're interested in. I like the smoothness of a petrol engine as well, and the sound that it makes, along with slightly less maintenance items as well. There's a little bit less complexity with the petrol powered car, and the fact that petrol is now a bit cheaper helps. In the United States, a gallon of premium fuel costs around $4, and the X3 absolutely does require premium fuel. And these cars have like a 17-gallon fuel tank, 17.2, so I just rounded down to 17. And to fill up a 17-gallon fuel tank at $4 a gallon in the United States, it'll be about $68. And 17 gallons is equivalent to about 64 liters in the UK, so it's going to cost them 92.8 pounds to fill up that X3, which is almost double what it costs us in the United States. So they're naturally paying more money for their cars. They have crazy taxes, and fuel is almost double the cost. Yeah, that's not cool. And the last few things I'm going to mention, it's just yearly fees. Okay, they have an MOT, which is a yearly inspection. That's about 40 pounds. And it's about $40 here to do an annual inspection on a car in the United States as well. So that's not too far apart. That's pretty much all of the costs that I wanted to cover for both the US and the UK. Now let's go ahead and let's conclude this video. Prices in the UK are obviously higher than it is in the United States, but like I talked about in the video, there are certain ways where you can cut down on those costs to where you're almost paying the same amount of money for a USA spec car. Overall, I would definitely say a vehicle is more expensive to operate in the UK, but fortunately it's not out of this world expensive. It's not double or triple the cost that it is in the United States. So that's a good thing. And of course, I just used the BMW X3 as an example. You can absolutely get much more cheaper and affordable cars like the various hatchbacks that they have to offer, and leasing those is going to be much cheaper as well. So I would definitely go down that route, and you can save a bundle in taxes and fees and all that good stuff, as well as get better fuel economy. And also looking into the plug-in hybrids, regular hybrids, you know, that also saves UK shoppers a lot of money in taxes. So if you're a UK viewer, let us know, you know, is there anything else? Am I totally off here with my numbers and my resources? I'll definitely be, correcting some things in the pinned comments, but I try to do my best with this research. Hopefully it was valuable to both the US and the UK viewers. Perhaps you learned something. I'll have all the resources that I used linked in the description box of this video. And also check out the Euro NCAP website. That's a good site to check for vehicle safety. If you like what you saw, if you want to support me personally, you can definitely purchase some of my merchandise, t-shirts, hats, hoodies, things of this nature. That'll be linked below as well. But thank you for watching. Take care and goodbye.